So Canada is due for a revolution. I was taking a look at some of their stuff. Their government is not. I thought they had elections, but let's see. They said, Wikipedia, Canada has a parliamentary system in the context of a constitutional monarchy. The monarchy of Canada being the foundation of the executive, legislative, and judicial branches. The sovereign is Queen Elizabeth II. So that means England is still controlling Canada. They need to overthrow their English sort of connections. They serve as the head of state of 15 other Commonwealth countries in each of Canada's 10 provinces. So they still, England still controls Canada. Like that's the empire is still. The Queen's representative, the Governor General of Canada, at present David Lloyd Johnston, carries out most of the federal royal duties. In Canada, the direct participation of the royal and viceroyal figures in areas of governance is limited in practice. Their use of the executive powers is directed by the Cabinet, a committee of ministers of the Crown, responsible to the elected House of Commons, and chosen and headed by the Prime Minister of Canada, at present Stephen Harper, the head of government. So really, it's just the face. Okay, so that's good. The Governor General and Monarch may, though, in certain crisis situations, exercise their power without ministerial advice. So, to ensure the stability of the government, the Governor General will usually appoint as Prime Minister the person who is the current leader of the political party that can obtain the confidence of a plurality, which is the majority of the people vote. So you get 40%, but if you're the highest, then it's okay. So it's not a majority, but it's a plurality in the House of Commons. The Prime Minister's office is thus one of the most powerful institutions in government, initiating most legislation for parliamentary approval, selected for appointment by the Crown. Okay, so Prime Minister of Canada, Stephen Harper. He's the primary minister of the Crown, chairman of the cabinet, and thus head of government for Canada, charged with advising. So it's like the monarch allows him to run things. It's almost like the city manager and the mayor. The mayor's the face, and the manager's the one who actually does the day-to-day hard sort of, organizing and work. Charged with advising the Canadian monarch or viceroy on the exercise of the executive powers vested in them by the Constitution. So he advises the monarch. So really he has no power. It's all the Queen Elizabeth II rules Canada. And so I was going to say the War of 1812 is how Canada started establishing their own sort of independent, no America, you can't just take Canada, we're going to be fighting here. And so the Brits were involved in that. And so again, it's like a world war conflict where you have like these smaller players that are benefiting it, which is all the revolution was, right? It was just a world war between France and England. And so basically Vietnam can be thought of in the same way that America's revolution is. The similarities are absolutely overwhelming. You have two great nations, great powers, the Soviet Union and America, who's both in Vietnam, and one's financing one side and the other one's financing the other. So some of them are defending the occupation, whereas the other ones are defending freedom and revolution and democracy and the fight for justice, social justice, right? So the Vietnamese Revolution against the American Empire in the 60s and 70s is a revolution in the same sense that America's revolution is a revolution against, England, but it was basically they were a colony, so they were sort of inconsequential to the world affairs of who's going to rule the seas in the world, France or England. And also incredible how some of these starts out as empires, and then they just dwindle and they become nothing. Portugal. There's like in Brazil, there's a big Portuguese culture. Then there's the Dutch and the Netherlands, and even France. France has very little influence in what Americans do today. I don't even know if Americans know that France was pivotal in making sure that we live, even people in Louisville, which Louisville is named after the French monarch. Louis XVI, they got his head cut off. So the French Revolution is very pinnacle, was where you have the Marie Antoinette and King Louis XVI beheaded with a guillotine. And so they're off with their heads, right? The heads will be rolling. You ever heard that phrase or that expression? If people don't straighten up down there, then heads will be rolling. And that's actually a very... I saw this one meme where they were talking about tyrants, how the guns have killed 0 tyrants, but lots of teachers and doctors and bakers and sort of the regular working class people, but zero tyrants. I was like, well, that's not true. It hasn't been zero tyrants. The assassinations in America, they have been against tyrannical people. So they have been against Garfield, McKinley, who started out about being an imperialist, JFK, which actually could have been, you know, the Illuminati or the people. It could have been an anti-revolutionary coup, right? That's very easy. That's a Martin Luther King. His murder was an anti-revolutionary coup to stop change from happening, for, you know, his a peaceful Christian socialist philosophy to not become reality. So there's lots of revolutions out here. Canada has not had a revolution, even though they need one. They shouldn't be listening to England whatsoever, and they speak French, so they don't really know who or what they're doing or what they are. The Constitution of Canada was actually written by Constitutional Act, so they had like compiled it all and kind of said, okay, here's the Constitution in 1982. So they've had constitutional revolutions, and they've had change in leadership. But it's all on the behest of the crown, right? So all of them like advise the crown. So they're all like, hey, will you please let us do this? And then they say, yeah, okay, go ahead. And so it's weird. That's weird. Canada, you shouldn't be listening to England. What are you doing? That's crazy. War of 1812, I was going to mention that as being like the Canadian Revolution, because they stopped the Americans from taking over Canada. But they allowed, they're still sort of pawns of the English. So they need an independence. Canada needs a war for independence. And that's also another thing with revolutions. There's a combination of revolutions and independence. So the American Revolution was a war for independence. So we were overthrowing our occupiers and therefore declaring our, you know, autonomy. And so the revolution is not always for independence. A lot of times people could just be using the word revolution and then not be revolutionary at all. Or sometimes people could be putting in their own forms of revolution, such as Trotsky and Lenin and Stalin and those, you know, jerks. So those jerks just didn't wait for the February Revolution, the provisionary government, to come up with their own, you know, their own path, right? You know, they didn't wait for the provisionary government to sort of say, hey, let's elect a new leader. They just came in and took over. And actually, I think that's a fascinating. We could do that one. The shorthand for all of them, you had Toussaint Louverture, who was a Haitian slave turned plantation owner turned revolutionary leader, who fought against the French and overthrew the French and declared Haiti a independent republic. The French, though, were very tricky with their monetary system. They're manipulating Africa right now, but they did the same thing with Haiti, and they said, okay, we'll let you have the slaves, but you got to pay us for them. You know, for your people. You got to pay for our property. That's our property, and we respect property. And so they had to pay reparations for like decades, and that kept Haiti in not only a dependent status with France, but also in perpetual poverty, because they had to pay off this huge bill, this huge debt to France, which kept France as they're kind of like the parental figure, right? Dad's pockets all. You know, they got lots of money for their military, so in case they did get out of line, they could just use Haitian money in order to destroy them. Haiti used to be like the most, the richest colony. They was getting sugar and lots of stuff out of it. So the biggest Spanish, and then there was a French colony, and then it was an American colony for a while. America's occupied Haiti. We've also coup d'etat them 3 times in the last 20 years. So imagine if we did to Haiti what Haiti, you know, if Haiti did to us what we did to them, we'd be flipping our lid. I mean, if whether it was Bush or Obama, if Haiti would have kidnapped them and said, you know, nope, he's not the leader anymore, and then held them, would, you know, America just sat back and watched that happen? That's what they did twice. They did it with Aristide twice, and then they did it with Baby Doc in '86. Papa Doc too. That was a CIA coup d'etat, but there's 3 of them recently. So I think I don't want to say Martelly is, but a lot of people say he is a plant by the American government. But that's you know, that's amazing that actually America can, and they're so bold and do things like the Honduras. There's the coup d'etat in Honduras actually, which was recent. That's a good one too, I think. Because this is something that Obama has done that the American people have not talked about. Marxism. I want to talk about Marxism too. So you have Mujica, the president of Uruguay, who just legalized marijuana, selling it for $1 a gram, which is like $30 an ounce. He's sitting there selling it for dirt cheap to undercut the black market. Well, Mujica, he was a Marxist revolutionary. And what is Marxist? You know, what is Marxism? That's a horrible word, right? Mitch McConnell started calling Obama a socialist. He's a socialist. He's not even close to being a socialist. But he was trying to do all these scare tactics, this sort of McCarthyism. So he was actually engaging in the McCarthyism, sort of Glenn Beck sort of scare tactics. So I'm going to look up Marxism with Wikipedia and Merriam-Webster. Well, I think that'll give us a good... So the political, economic, and social theories of Karl Marx, including the belief that the struggle between social classes is a major force in history, and that there should eventually be a society in which there are no classes. So Marxism, he doesn't want there to be classes. There shouldn't be rich and poor and middle. And then, you know, he wants there to be, all of us to be equal and enjoy a utopiast wonderland, right? The political, economic, and social principles and policies advocated by Marx, especially theory and practice of socialism, including the labor theory of value, right? Your labor has value. The dialectical materialism. So let's write that down because that is an important concept of Marxism. Dialectical materialism. I heard there's a big fight, actually. There's a Hegel, someone was talking about Hegel, but they was talking about the, God, what was it they were talking about? Some big concept by Immanuel Kant or one of those Enlightenment religious thinkers. The categorical imperative. So the categorical imperative. We're going to look up both of these things tonight. So Marxism, okay, so we've defined it, let's see, a theory of practice, let's see, labor theory of value, dialectical materialism, the class struggle, and the dictatorship of the proletariat until the establishment of a classless society. So Karl Marx wanted a dictatorship, this nation state, the Germans, the Otto von Bismarcks, the Frances, and the Portugals of the world, they have a monopoly on power. And in order to smash the classes, you have to get power, the state power, and you have to have a dictator who takes state power, who is for the working people and the working classes. Once you get that dictator who's for the working people, which is what Lenin, Trotsky, and Stalin were claiming they were, then they changed all society as they saw fit in order to establish a classless society. So essentially Stalin was just as a power grab. Stalin was kind of impressive because he started out as a secretary, so he's writing everybody's names down and, you know, doing a role, and then he becomes this horrible, you know, dictator that kills like 60 million people and rules with an iron fist for 50 years. So don't ever knock a secretary, you know, a secretary position. A lot of times you'll have like positions of president, treasurer, secretary, vice president. Don't knock the secretary's position. They're documenting history, they're documenting the agenda, they're putting it out there. So actually they could be the very ones who are establishing policy. So Marxism is Marxism. That's just Marxism, right? It's a worldview. It's a method of societal analysis that focuses on class relations and societal conflict. It uses a materialist interpretation of historical development and a dialectical view of social transformation. Marxist methodology uses economic and socio-political inquiry and applies that to the analysis and critique of the development of capitalism and the role of class struggle in the systemic economic change. In the mid to late 19th century, the intellectual tenets of Marxism were inspired by two German philosophers, Karl Marx and Friedrich Engels. Marxist analysis and methodologies have influenced multiple political ideologies and social movements throughout history. Marxism encompasses an economic theory, a sociological theory, a philosophical method, and a revolutionary view of social change. So there's a lot of things when it comes to Marxism. There's an economic theory, a sociological theory, a philosophical method, and a revolutionary view of social change. There's no single definitive Marxist theory. Marxist analysis have been applied to diverse subjects, been misconceived and modified during the course of its development, resulting in numerous, sometimes contradictory theories that fall under the rubric of Marxism or Marxism analysis. So a lot of people say what Marxism is and what it isn't. I understood it as like the historical sort of sorry, we'll just did it at 15.